Hello, everyone. Brother Al McClaney with this week's stewardship video. Let me tell you, all's well with the world. Just finished on a spiritual high and physical high. It's a beautiful day on this May 7th, or excuse me, May 6th that I'm recording the stewardship video. Just finished our leadership meeting and Bible study fellowship. It's the last one for the year in which we're sharing as leadership what God has done in our life and how we've seen God's word. We were doing the Old Testament this year, and we'll culminate on Monday with the rest of the men on our what we call Victory Night. Where men are sharing during the week. So got that going on in the background. You can't see, but I'm looking at the annual meeting for Berkshire Hathaway. I'm going to get into that later with Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. So all's well with the world. But before we go too far, no advice should be seen as a recommendation, as I am not a licensed financial advisor, and this is for educational purposes only. So this is the second part of a video I call Don't Give Up, Rebuilding, and this is part two. And just a quick summary and review from last week, Reverend Michael Allen preached a sermon in which he utilized Mark 5 verses 25 through 29, a woman with the issue of blood, in which she talked about for years she had this constant issue of blood, and she said if she could just push through and touch the hem of the garment of Jesus, and she was healed. So he talked about not giving up. So that was the backdrop that inspired this particular video, and this one is part two. And for me, the inspiration was talking about how having an emergency fund, you through the years or months, you built it up, and then all of a sudden it gets tagged, right? You have to have a withdrawal because of something that happens. Life happens. And how do you rebuild? How do you get back on that horse and start riding? How do you start riding that bicycle again after? Because you can feel defeated that you built this amount up, and then it gets hit with something like life happens. And I talked to you about 4 tires being replaced and then having a unexpected tax bill come in. So those type of things, but we had an emergency fund. But before this particular video happened, our church went to a movie, and it involved the person that you see on this screen. This is a scene from the movie of the person that was involved. And this person who didn't really have a relationship with the Lord, his mother did, had raised him, but he didn't. He always considered himself as being the one, the source of everything in his life. He came across something that knocked him to his nephew. I think it was either nephew or niece, had a health condition, young baby being born, and they didn't think the baby was going to live. He went privately, and this is a scene from a movie. I took a picture while I was in the movie theater of him praying. He's praying to God. Now, he didn't really have a relationship with God, but this time he prayed, and the baby was saved. His niece or nephew, I can't remember his niece or nephew, was saved. And who was this person? This is George Foreman. So the movie is called, it's George Foreman's life. Our church went to see it last week. You see to the left is his actual picture of Foreman when he fought Muhammad Ali. He lost that fight, actually moved away from fighting at that point. He made a return to fighting, and he actually, during a fight with Jimmy Young, he actually died during the fight. And that's when he found Jesus. He said, I actually died, alleged Judge Foreman, and then the miraculous turning point that changed his life. And in the movie, you see him dying, right? And then during that time, he had an encounter with Jesus. And that's when he turned his life around and gave his life to Christ. He actually became a preacher. And from then on, he dedicated everything to his life. But he went through a setback in his life. He lost all his money. His good friend who was managing his money lost all his money. So he had to go back fighting again. And you may remember, I think he was age 45. He was the oldest champion. He made that comeback. And during that comeback time, he said, I'm doing it different this time. He said, everything is dedicated to the Lord. So he had been preaching. He said he wouldn't go back to fighting. He said that he needs to do, he said 2 things he knows. He knows how to preach, he knows the Lord, and he knows fighting. And he says right now, preaching's not paying the bills. And he went back to fighting. He said, but this is going to be different. I'm going to do everything to the Lord. And when he won that championship, he prayed, he raised, and he said his wife had seen him being raised up, doing the championship, and that the Lord would get all the glory. So that's how he came back. And now I think today I looked up George Foreman's net worth, I think is about 300 million. Because they were talking about the George Foreman grills. They even allude to that in the movie. It's just he did everything differently. He totally dedicated everything to the Lord, everything in his life. And that's how we say we start. So how do we start over? How do you rebuild on that emergency account? The first thing is pray and go back. If you were using biblical functions, principles before to build up that account, and if that's how you do, and start again. And I found this on Dave Ramsey's website. You know, I love Dave Ramsey. And there's actually a section, and you can pause the video, take a picture of this, go out to this part on his website. And one of his quotes says, "There's no shame in that game. This is what the fun is for." In other words, when your emergency fund gets tapped, that's what it's for. It did its job, and well. So get back on those stairs and show life you're going to keep moving forward. You will rebuild your emergency fund. And that's Dave Ramsey's quote. Then he goes through a listing of what to do. If you don't already have a budget, make a budget. Track your spending. Pause other money goes. So if you're about to do something on a money project, pause it. Don't stop it. Pause it. Build back up that emergency fund and keep going. Cut some extra expenses. Go to a short-term spending freeze. Then additional items. You may need to sell some stuff. Start a side hustle. Some people, they'll take a second job, but the person's second job, they end up putting it into their living style. Don't do that. Have a special purpose for it. So I'm going to work 6 weeks. I'm going to take an additional job, build up my emergency account. And once that I'm done, I'm not going to start to live off of that money. It says find a side hustle, save on groceries by meal plan, cut the cable. I know, sacrilegious. Oh, no, not my cable. Consider downsizing your home. That's one of the extreme ones. And go to a power, switch your term life. No, it's okay to say no. So go out to that Dave Ramsey. He's got more. I just picked some of them. Go out to that ramseysolutions.com/savings /what to do after using emergency fund. So take a picture of this, go back out, and remember this quote: there's no shame in the game. It did its job, right? If you didn't have to go to credit card, or if you didn't have to put the full amount on a credit card, maybe it was an $1,000 expense, you had a $500 emergency, you could do half of it, you're still better off. It did its job, so get right back at it. With that, let's go ahead and go into our anticipated earnings for this week. We're still in the middle of earnings season, so we have many being reported. We got PayPal, right? Got Six Flags, got Palantir, that's in the tech, I believe. Airbnb, we've got Roblox, we've mentioned that before as an investment. Wendy's, Walt Disney, they've been in the news, so they're reporting. Dutch Brothers, I had a Dutch Brothers trade on last week, did really well. Those are popping up all around us here in the Texas area. That could be a good investment to look in. Drive by. I've been looking at the lines going around the corner. Once again, no advice should be seen as a recommendation. I'm just saying, do your own research. This is just to spark, you to do your own research. Krispy Kreme, the hot sign was on when I went by today. So right, these are reporting this week. But with that, remember, we're always saying, look at opportunities that are out there. So I saw this article talking about the most common top dishes for Grubhub. The number one was Burrito Bowl, right? And where was it coming from? They were ordered from Chipotle. And I remember my wife loves Chipotle. I said, hey, you got any Chipotle stock? I said, well, no, I don't. And now she's looking at something or possibly doing that. But Chipotle, look at the return on Chipotle. First, look at the store count. Went from 1,084 stores. I remember when I think it was Oprah that mentioned this years ago. It's now up to 3,187 stores in 2022. Look at the return on the stock. Over 2,000% since 2010. Wouldn't it have been great to be part of that? And here's something else. 5% of the avocado supply goes to Chipotle. And they're having great earnings, right? So they reported earnings, and now they've dipped a little bit, but when they reported, it skyrocketed. It went from about 1,750, right, up to a high $2,067. And here's the great news. If you have Charles Schwab or Fidelity, I don't know about Fidelity, but I have Charles Schwab, you can buy this as stock slices because you're saying, Al, I can't afford it because it closed at $2,028.21 a share on Friday. I can't afford it. You can buy stock slices of it. But if you can't afford it, hey, there you go. Because I heard someone say they think it's still at least $20, $30 more left for Chipotle to go. All right. So here's another one. I just mentioned this. I said I'm going to go back to this, but in the background, I turn my head. You make it see me on camera. The annual shareholders meeting is going on in Omaha, Nebraska. And where's Omaha, Nebraska? Well, that's the home of Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett's group, right? And so you see pictures here. This Warren Buffett walking in. This has become a big party for them. Well, Warren Buffett's 93, but this guy's still sharp. His partner is Charlie Munger. He's 96. Both of them are still sharp. And then at the bottom, you can see my cursor. These are the others. So they've got succession planning. So, when Buffett goes on to glory, they've got people selected that are going to step in. So one of the things is, and we pointed this out before, that you go out to CNBC and track the public stocks because Berkshire not only owns companies, which I'm going to show in the next slide, but it invests a tremendous amount in publicly traded companies, not just a portfolio but a lot of people don't realize insurance companies have huge portfolios themselves. So Berkshire, first, they did well. They had an earnings jump in first quarter. Usually this type of environment, companies like Berkshire does really well. So when you're owning Berkshire stock and you could do stock slices with Charles Schwab, because the Berkshire A, he doesn't split. I think they're about $20,000 a share or something like. I don't even look at them, right? But per share. But Berkshire B is about $320 some, and there's really no difference between the two. But do your research on that. Here is, you can go out to the CNBC Berkshire Hathaway portfolio tracker, and this is just alphabetical order, but you can look at the holdings. So you're really kind of getting your own kind of mutual fund by owning a share of Berkshire because you've got exposure to all these particular companies. You also can look out there because Warren Buffett has been one of the greatest investors, stock pickers out there, where he's got people who he's taught his methodology who now also know, and they're using the same type of philosophy. So here's the thing. He owns a lot of Apple stock. All right. So it's 49% of their portfolio now, 45% of their portfolio. Berkshire, Apple, and Apple had great earnings. They crushed it. This, I think it was last week they reported. So not only do they have publicly traded stocks, and you can track exactly what's in there by going out, pause the video, go out. I've pointed this out before. The other thing is about Berkshire is they own companies outright. Now, most of the famous ones people know are Geico. They own Dairy Queen, right? You could go out, and I just looked at Wikipedia, and I did this by alphabetical order, so I don't have all the companies out there, but they outright own companies. One they just acquired like a couple of years ago, BNSF Railway Company, and they actually had that CEO. I'm looking to the right. He was up on the stage with Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, and then I can't remember the guy who's over the insurance division. He was up there also. So you saw that picture of 4 people that were up there, and I'm recording this because I'm going to go back and look at it. And I'm sure you're going to be able to find it on YouTube. A lot of good points because they do a lot of Q&A where people are asking about not only Berkshire, but just Warren Buffett's thoughts and Charlie Munger's thoughts about the economy and what's going on. And here's the Berkshire B chart, and you can see it closed on Friday, $323.88 per share, right? That's Berkshire B. So you can get full Berkshire B shares, but you also could do stock slices, right? So you could say, of the Berkshire B share, I only have $100. I'm going to do $100 of that, right? And this is back to the companies I talked about. They out and right own. Here's 100% own Acme Brick Company, 100% own Benjamin Moore, 100% own what I was telling you, that BNSF Railway Company. The other ones I said that I don't have them here because this is alphabetical, but Geico is the most famous one. In the jewelry store, I can't recall it right now, but that's another one that's a big one. I think Nebraska Furniture is another one they own outright. But I just went out to Wikipedia and put Berkshire Hathaway, out and out companies or something like that. All right, let's look at overall market, close out this video. QQQ, so I can get back to watching the the annual meeting. One day I really like to attend it. I probably have to do it next year because how long is Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett going to actually be there? So I'm going to try to figure out next year how to go to. I've always told Janine I want to do that. So here's QQQ. Taking a look at it, it went through that resistance we talked about before. That's going to probably become support. So it's going up. SPY is still, we talked about it. This has become resistance for SPY, and it's bouncing around. So we'll see if it breaks out, or what some people pull back on their recession projections, not this year, but maybe next year. So it's still not, they haven't taken it off the table. And we know the economy is still going because the 10th rate hike, I mean, we had talked about, will it happen on Tuesday? It did happen. So that was the 10th rate hike in 14 months. And no time in the history has the Fed raised interest rates that fast, that steep. So eventually, it may break something. But we'll take a look probably next week of what the June meeting looks like. But I think it's backed off and they think that they're going to pause, but we'll see that tool. So with that, that's it for this week. But I want to go ahead and start announcing at Grand Prairie. If you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, at our Grand Prairie campus, St. John Baptist Church, we're having a financial seminar where we're gonna cover some money moves to make, for the recession. I'm gonna be there. We're going to talk about home buying options, and we're going to talk about preparing for retirement. That's going to be Saturday, June 10th at our Grand Prairie campus, 1701 West Jefferson in Grand Prairie, Texas. And it's going to be from 9 to 12. No registration is needed. You don't have to be a member of St. John, but I encourage you to come out and get some knowledge when it comes to your finances. So as always, we thank you for tuning into the stewardship video. And as my pastor Denny White Davis says, he's celebrating his time at St. John in the month of May. Have a good week and keep a good spirit. And as we say on the stewardship video, remember Jesus is Lord, therefore he's owner, but we are his faithful stewards following his biblical principles. Remember, go out to YouTube, like and subscribe. There's the email if you want to get on the distribution list, or email me. So until then, see you next week.